A piecewise function is just a function that is defined differently on different parts of the domain. I mean, sometimes we do one thing and sometimes we do another. And you have to look at those domains to know where you use each piece. What we're going to focus on today is drawing the graphs of these things. When we do that, probably the easiest option is just to make T-charts. And basically we will do a T-chart for each piece. So if your piecewise has 3 pieces, we'll do 3 T-charts. This example has 2 pieces, so I will do 2 T-charts. All right? We will set that up. You're always going to have a condition, and it tells you when you use each piece. Now, if it's a function, you can't repeat the same x value. So will you ever have a case where both of these are equal to 1? No, because then it would fail the vertical line test. But even though it's going to have one piece where it's not equal to 1, we still have to plug in that 1 to get the starting point on our graph. Now, if something is not equal to, when we graph it, what would we draw? Yeah, and if we're like at just a point, you can do open versus closed circles. So if it's equal to, we'll put a closed circle. If it's not equal to, we'll just use an open circle there. So for the first piece, if I were going to plug in, even though there's not an equal to, we will start with 1. Because it's not equal to, I know that point will be an open circle. And then it says to use that piece, x has to be less than 1. So the other x's have to be something smaller than 1. You can pick any numbers you want. I'll just do 0 and -1. So then we will plug those in to that first piece. So if I put in a 1, 2 times 1 plus 4 gives me 6. If I put in a 0, we would get 4. If you put in a 1, you get, or sorry, -1, we get 2. Does everybody understand where we're getting? Okay, so when we graph this, 1, 6 was our starting point, and that started with an open circle because it was not equal to 1. Then we have 0, 4, -1, 2. So it started here, it's continuing. Did it stop after the -1? No, it keeps continuing for all x's less than 1. So that line just keeps going to that direction. Now we do the second piece. So this one is for when x is greater than or equal to 1. Since that one can equal 1, it will start with a closed circle. And then we want x's bigger than that. So maybe a 2 and a 3. So if we plug in a 1, 4 minus 1 is 3. If you put in a 2, 4 minus 2 is 2. If we put in a 3, 4 minus 3 is 1. Does everybody know where I'm getting my points? So then on my graph, I have 1, 3. This one, oops, put it in the wrong spot. So 1, 3 is closed. Again, if it's a function, you can't have 2 closed circles there. It has to pass the vertical line test. 2, 2, 3, 1. This one started here and it continued for x's greater than that. So we'll go this way. Quick check at the end to make sure it passes the vertical line test. If you have 2 closed circles, double check which one should have been open. If your lines overlap, you extended one of your lines the wrong direction. Double check what happened. All right. Are there questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
How do we know what direction the arrow goes?
So basically, this gives you your first point, and then like for the first one, it was x's less than that, so it extended to the left. This one was, the x was bigger than 1, so you had to go to the right.
If it doesn't pass the vertical line test, something's wrong, right?
Yep. Alright, any other questions here? Let's look at this one. So how many T-charts do we need?
2.
2.
Oh.
Alright, what do I plug in first?
0.
You have to use whatever number I gave you to start with, so we have to use 0. Will it be open or closed?
Close.
Closed. And then I need x's bigger or smaller than that?
Smaller.
Smaller, because it's less than 0. So maybe a -1 and a -2. So if I put in 0, opposite of 0 is 0, minus 2 is -2. If I put in a -1, opposite of -1 is 1, minus 2 is -1. If I put in a -2, opposite of -2 would be 2, minus 2 is 0. So we have 0, -2, -1, -2, 0. This, I have my starting point. We want x's less than that, so less than will go to the left. So it just continues. Next one. So, what do we plug in first?
0.
Will it be open or closed?
Open.
Open. We know they can't both be closed. This one doesn't have the equal to, so that's what makes it open. And then we want x's bigger than that. If you look at this, you're going to have to multiply them by 2. If you want to avoid fractions, what kind of numbers, or multiply them by a half, sorry. So if we want to avoid fractions, what kind of numbers should we put in?
Halves.
Yeah, numbers you can divide in half, so even numbers would be good. You don't have to, this is just if you want nicer points, so we might try like a 2 and a 4, but we could certainly plug in anything bigger than 0. So if I put in 0, 1/2 times 0 is 0, minus 2 being -2. Put in a 2, 1/2 times 2 is 1, minus 2 is -1. Put in a 4, 1/2 times 4 is 2, minus 2 is 0. Now when I go down at 0, -2, it says open, but I already have it closed. If you end up with an open and a closed circle at the same point, you just leave it closed. Then we have 2, -1, 4, 0. So this started here and extended x is greater than 0, so that would go to the right.
Okay, so if it's open, you gotta close it, but that's stay open.
Yeah. Other questions? Alright. That's all we're doing. We're just going to keep practicing these things. This one, how many pieces am I going to need?
2.
I've got 3 different conditions this time. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Now this one's a little bit different, because if I look at my requirements, it's not just x is less than something, it's saying x is in between 2 numbers. When that happens, you have to put in both the -3 and the 1, and then we want something else between them. It doesn't matter what, so maybe it's 0.
0.
At -3, would it be open or closed?
Open or close?
Closed, because it had equal to, but at 1, it doesn't have an equal to, so at 1, it will be open. Alright, so So if we put in -3, opposite of -3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. If we put in a 0, opposite of 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. If we put in a 1, opposite of 1 is -1, plus 1 is 0. So we have -3, +4, that was closed, 0, 1, and 1, 0 is open. Since that one had a starting and a stopping point, then we only draw that little segment. And it doesn't keep going either direction. Is that one good? The second piece, when I go to do my t-chart, all it says is when x equals 1. So the only x value I can put in is 1. And what do I get out?
2.
2. All that is a point. 1, 2. Then my third piece is for x greater than 1. So we still have to plug in the 1 to get us started, but what kind of circle will that be?
Open.
And then we need things larger than that, so maybe a 2 and a 3. So if I put in 1, 1 squared is 1. Put in a 2, 2 squared is 4. Put in a 3, 3 squared is 9. So 1, 1 is open. 2, 4. Bigger graph probably would have been helpful, huh? 3, 9. So this is like part of a parabola. So it would look like this. Is that one okay with everybody? Alright, oops, I just skipped over. Alright, let's go to this one. How many pieces do I need?
2.
2. Okay, this one's also a little bit weird. The first piece, it says 2x if x does not equal 0. So this is everywhere except 0. I still have to plug in this 0, but what kind of circle would that be?
Open.
Open. But then x can be anything else, so let's put in maybe a negative and a positive. So if we put in 0, 2 times 0 is 0. If you put in a -1, 2 times -1 is -2. If you put in a 1, 2 times 1 is 2. So 0, 0 is an open circle. And I've got -1, -2, +1, +2. Which way would this extend? Both. It's everything except 0. So it's just like a line with an open circle in the middle. Alright, second piece, 1 if x equals 0. What would that be? Just a single point. When x is 0, we get out 1. So we can see this passes the vertical line test because the one place I have that circle, we had an open circle underneath it. It's still a function, so we're good. All right. Any issues with this stuff so far? The next slide, I'm asking you to evaluate some things, but I didn't have you draw a graph. So we could draw the whole graph to evaluate it, but if you have a piecewise, if I'm asking you to plug in, how many answers should you get out, first of all, if it's a function? We have 3 pieces, but Can 0 fit into all three of those? If it's a function, each x can only give you one answer, right? It has to pass the vertical line test. If x equals 0, then which piece would you use? The x is greater than -2, the x equals -2, or the x is less than -2? Yeah. 0 is greater than -2, so you're going to plug it into that first piece and that first piece only. It's a function, so you can only have one answer. And so we just get out -1. Right. If I said -2.1, is that greater than -2, equal to -2, or less than -2? Less than. So you'll put it into the last piece. F of -2, which piece would you use? Second one, -2 is equal to -2, so we're going to put it in there. So -2 squared means -2 times -2, which is positive 4. And the final one, F of 3, which piece would you use? First one, 3 is greater than -2, so 2 times 3 minus 1. So you get 5. So if all I'm asking you to do is evaluate, you don't have to go through the trouble of drawing the whole thing. You just figure out which piece you're plugging it into. It'll always be only one piece, because you can only get one answer if it's a function. Alright? Last one. How many pieces?
3.
3. Okay. First piece, where does it start? At 2. Will that be open or closed? Closed. And then you need x's less than that, so maybe a 1 and a 0. Sorry, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Okay. So if I plug in 2, 2 plus 1 is 3. 1 plus 1 is 2. 0 plus 1 is 1. So 2, 3 was closed circle. We're going less than 2, so we'll keep going to the left. So 1, 2, 0, 1. It looks like that. Second piece, what numbers do you have to plug in?
2.
Right. And then if you want, you can do maybe a 3 in the middle. Will either of those be open?
The first one.
2.
And the 4 is closed. Good. What am I getting out every time? 3. So 2, 3 is open, but I already have a closed circle there, so you just leave it closed. 3, 3, 4, 3. Does this keep going either direction? No. We had a starting and a stopping point. So it's just that little piece of a horizontal line. And then the final piece. What do I have to plug in first? 4. Open or closed?
Open.
And then you need things bigger than 4, so maybe a 5 and a 6. Okay, so if I put in 4, -2 times 4 is -8, plus 7 is -1. Put in 5, I get -10 plus 7, so -3. Then 6, -12 plus 7 is -5. 4, -1. 5, -3. 6, -5. This one does continue. So it looks like that. Did we do it right? Does it pass the vertical line test?
Yes.
Yes, so we are good. Alright, any questions for me, guys? So I have a handout for you.